because I wasn't one of them. Those who sang it before know what it means, and it has deep and resonant meaning, and it has deep and resonant meaning to people who are of the People's National Party, because that's who they are. That's who we are. The ideas encapsulated in that song are about what we feel and we know and we think instinctively, right? But then we remix the song. And a new generation come and take up on being a blood and fire comrade. And it means something different to this new generation. It means commitment in our blood. It means passion as fire, right? That's all it means. And anybody who tries to change the meaning of that can come out and walk with us as we seek to rescue Jamaica. Now, that's what culture and creative industries is. It is what we feel, what we know, who we are, what we believe, what we do, how we behave, how we think, how we move. But it is also the production of that expression into a tangible form that we can listen to, that we can hear, that we can post, that we can send, that we can sell. Yes, and that's the creative economy side, because we're creating value out of what we feel. Now, that's culture and creative industries, and it's time we take it seriously. It's time we recognize that there's great value in that process of taking what we feel and understanding that what we feel is not something that we need to be ashamed of, because it's not empirical, and because we can't count it, and because we can't hold it, and we can't feel it, because it's of us. Yeah? And that's why we have to invest in it. So that's culture and creative industries. I'm an audiovisual everything. I have been a television producer for many years, so I think in pictures and I think in visuals, and so I want to share a little presentation with you. We're at a turning point, ladies and gentlemen, Jamaicans all. The next administration is going to determine how the cultural and creative sector urgently receives the required structured investment, formalization, and development to grow. In order to grow, these are the things it's going to require. And I usually say when I'm speaking to people, particularly people in civil society, that whatever government comes to power, and we know which it will be, there is going to have to be a level of investment in culture and creative industries, and we're going to have to grasp it and be clear about that, and so we have to understand what that means. What we did is we put together a team. The party leader named a spokesperson's team, and we put together a task force. And we looked at the culture and creative industries, who we are, and the creative expression that exists. And we decided that it was clear, 10 years ago, Most Honorable Portia Simpson Miller came to understand that the thing was fragmented. There were a number of different voices that were speaking to the issues of culture and creative expression. And she put together what she called the National Cultural and Creative Industries Commission. And it brought all the ministries, there were 6 of them together, to deal with putting together policy. But other things she did, which was really revolutionary and important, is that she decided that we needed to get all of the professional organizations in culture, music, art, the filmmakers, the persons in media and so on, bring them together so that they would be a part of the decision making. And some of the ministers who were there at that time are in this room at the moment. And they all came together and started to put together a framework. We left this framework for this government in 2016. We also left a number of ideas, including the ideas coming out of the Ministry of Tourism and Entertainment, like the special entertainment zones that Damian Crawford had authored. And there were other programs coming out of the Ministry of Youth and Culture that were very, very important in terms of determining who we were. And we wanted to bring them all together under a framework. The Prime Minister did that through the NCCIC. Now, 10 years later, that commission has never, ever met, not once. It was not recommissioned, and what that means is that there has been very little, and certainly very little formal participatory governance in terms of an institutional framework for cultural and creative practitioners to be a part of the decision making for their sector. And this is one of the first things that we are going to seek to do, to bring back the National Cultural and Creative Industries Commission to ensure that cultural and creative practitioners are a part of their own decision making. Now, this team that was put together, we started to look at what Comrade Julian Robinson spoke to us about in terms of the sustainable growth strategy, education, energy, emerging industries, and efficiency. And most of us are represented here today. Emerging industries would include technology and the cultural and creative industries. So we took that on, and we took on the party leader's notion of what he meant when he said he wanted to see change, and we started to look at the cultural and creative industries. And one of the things that I found most of all is that the cultural and creative industries, there's a major issue in culture and creative industries. There are some people who believe in art for art's sake and culture on its own, and culture as something that is organic and is a part of us and should not be included in the issues of money and economy, which you see on the other side of the scale. As a government, as a modern government, one of the things that we have to do is find the appropriate balance. And so that's another one of the issues that we have found that we're going to be using to move the cultural and creative industries forward. Because we can't neglect the notion that we're in a situation where we have to be growing our economy. And in growing our economy, we have to diversify our economy. And that simply means, as Andre said, we need to be finding new ways to be able to grow our economy, and the cultural and creative industries is one of those. Why? Because it is our competitive and comparative advantage. And what that means is we are good at it. We do it well. We spread our culture and creative industries to the world, and people know us for it. Whenever we go anywhere in the world, somebody is going to say to us, Bob Marley, or they're going to say to us, Usain Bolt. These are the people who become important as a part of the cultural and creative sector. So we have to find the balance. It is a $3 trillion industry. At the moment, based on some of the calculations that have been done, it's up to about over 9% of GDP, anywhere between 5 and 9. But the problem is we don't know, because the work has not been done in the last 10 years to determine what the real value of culture and creative industries is. So that's another thing that we have to do, that has to become another priority as we seek to find the balance. The other thing is, we have to define what culture and creative industries are. 20 sectors, ladies and gentlemen. 20 subsectors of the cultural economy. Media, music, audiovisual, and each one of these subsectors has over 3 industries, which means we have at least 60 industries from the culture and creative industries. Now, if we look at 60 industries, building out 60 industries, we see an immediate path to growth. When we put together the elements of the emerging industries, we see that we are well over 20% of GDP. We have to formalize these figures. We have to ensure that the numbers are clear, but very little work has been done to put these figures together in the last 10 years. Why? There's been no policy, there's been no plan, there's been no strategy, there's been no structure, and this is why, as the party leader said in his presentation to Parliament, that cultural and creative industries, they continue to grow, but in spite of government intervention, because very little is done to coalesce the culture and creative industries. So there are a number of things that we have to do. These are some of the things that we need to do. We need to create a strong ethical base. We hear the sounds on the radio. The other day, I was driving on the road and I stopped beside a bus. The bus was black, tint up. And I can't even begin to tell you some of the music that was coming out of the bus. And we know that there are laws that should prevent that. But there also has to be an element from a cultural perspective to see how we can make some of those changes and influence some of the change that is required in terms of an ethical base in our cultural and creative industries. We need a national framework. We need to eliminate what we see now as arbitrary projects. Projects that have no real end game. So you have a very important insurance scheme that we would have mooted as a part of our framework in 2015, but without a sustainability framework. Yeah, you see, there are career schemes with no throughput to where the children who go to the career fair and watch the career fair and have a great time, what do they do next? How do they now know how they are going to move forward in their careers? We need a facilitatory government role, which means we need the government to be able to facilitate and assist cultural and creative practitioners to move themselves forward, whether they have been round robins, or they are having a sound system, or they are a filmmaker, or they are a TikToker. That one has been getting a lot of attention lately. Whether they're making music or beats, or they're into art, or they're into some of the other technical areas, animation and so on. We need to be able to engage the private sector to have it understand how important culture and creative industries, and we need to be moving towards social integration. So how are we going to do it? When we started our work, one of the things that we determined is that there are a lot of prescriptions, and have been for over a decade, as to how to grow the culture and creative industries. But as to what needs to happen, and we decided that we were going to take a look at how we were going to do it. And we decided that we're going to create a roadmap to culture, a roadmap to moving towards development of culture and creative industries. And we're starting with nurturing greatness. Every time we go around the country, we see all these people who have this phenomenal talent, and there's no throughput. There's no way for them to move their talent forward. It's not a clear path. So we want to be able to put in programs, and we have a series of them that's going to help individuals matriculate right through the system to be able to participate in culture and creative industries. And like I said, each one of these has a number of programs to achieve these particular goals. The second one is to ground cultural and creative industries in the communities. In the past decade, culture has been absolutely removed from the communities and has been centralized. So we want to see the JCDC back in the communities. We want to see the municipal councils having more street dances at the end for the special events. We want to see the float parades back in the communities. We want to see the community centers being used in ways that culture and creative industries and social transformation programs and citizen security programs all come together to ensure that our communities come alive again. I recently moved to a rural community, and I am saddened, I'm really saddened by the ways in which our rural communities have lost their verve, have lost some of their energy, and it's really important and incumbent on us. As we move around the country too, I've been to a couple of constituencies where we recognize that each constituency has its own cultural flavor. And there is the means by which we can have creative or cultural districts. So when I went to Comrade Pat's constituency, we toured the entire area of where Bedward and got the full story of Bedward. But guess what? See the grass here on top of Bedward grave? You can't get to the grave. And the same is true for most of the heritage sites around the country. It is heart-rending, heart-breaking to see some of it. Comrade Ethne, we went to Comrade Ethne, and it's a different flavor. Entrepreneurship right across the Henny Park. Yes. On one corner you have a museum, on another corner you have a bar, on another corner you have a place where it's really a dust bowl at the moment. But we sat and we spoke about it. When we can have a creative district in the Henny Park, where you leave the museum and go to the bar, and then there's a performance at the over where is now a dust bowl. Why can't we be using these spaces in order to create wealth and to create value for people within communities? So that's the second one, and that's the one I'm really most passionate about in terms of materializing. The third one is going for growth, putting in the structures. This is a technical one. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm not going to try to explain it here. But it's a very technical process of trying to onboard cultural and creative industries as a part of the economy. It's something that I've spoken a great deal with the party leader, who understands this process, because this is what he does. He's a solutions man, and this is one of the areas. It's going to take a lot of research. It's going to take a lot of legislation, and this is where the $1 billion fund comes in, where we're going to be growing businesses, cultural and creative businesses, from little small businesses of all cultural and creative stripes, yes, from every sector. And we're going to be ensuring that they're getting technical assistance, we're going to be ensuring that they're getting loans and grants, and that they're going to be able to move forward, move their businesses forward. The fourth node is governance. Now, that's actually one of the biggest problems we have in cultural and creative industries. It's not the sexiest, but it is the most critical, because we have a problem with transparency, a big problem with transparency. We don't know a lot about what's happening within the administrative bodies, institutions that run culture and creative industries, and a lot of times those questions are asked and there is a blank wall. So for example, I've asked about Bill Royal and its contents, and at this point I'm yet to hear what the situation is with that, and there are many other questions about transparency, inclusion. People who complain about being blacklisted can't get emails that are not being answered. People who feel that they can't go to the ministry because, although it is said there is an open door policy that is open.
Kind reminder that we are streaming live. You are in the palms and in the homes of hundreds of people. So please adjust yourselves to that reality so that we don't have any screenshots or screen grabs of things you wouldn't want to otherwise see on the internet. Yes? Also, kind reminders, please have your phones on silent. And also, we welcome our online audience and to the People's Forum. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and also let us know what's resonating with you so far. I saw some insightful comments, and I just want to, these usernames are very funny, but I just want to acknowledge Funny Bunny, Dennis Williams, and Lady J Love. Thank you for being so interactive. We now welcome our final presenter to bring what he terms an electrifying presentation to you. And he is, I don't think I need to age, he's the energy boss himself. He's Philip Powell, Shadow Minister on Energy and Climate Change.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson. I greet the future Prime Minister of Jamaica. My colleague panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
I believe you've gotten more than enough reasons to vote for the PNP already. Such absorbed.
Recognize that there has not been a focus on doing what is necessary to improve the lives of the average Jamaican. We have seen where our unemployment rate, as reported by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, is one of the lowest that we've seen in many decades. It's about 4-point-something%. As economists, when we compare this unemployment rate to the national and the natural rate of unemployment for Jamaica, it is below that natural accelerating inflationary rate. And what do we mean? The unemployment rate is very low. However, if you scrutinize the numbers, you would realize that gross domestic product, which is GDP, the amount of people being employed on an annual basis, has increased, but the amount of goods that we're producing has remained the same. Now in economics, we differentiate between what we call the intensive and the extensive margin. The extensive margin is when you hire more people and these people produce more goods. The intensive margin is when you use the existing amount of people to produce more goods. Now Jamaica has exhausted what we call the extensive margin, because as you realize, most of the people are employed. And if most of the people are employed and we're still producing the same, it means that we cannot add more people to the production process through the extensive margin. Now what this means is that we need the people who are currently working to produce more via the intensive margin. And this intensive margin is considered to be an increase in your productivity that increases your output. And the number one factor that contributes to the increase in the extensive margin is technology. When you look at the Asian tigers, you look at countries like China, you look at countries like South Korea, whose GDP back in the 1950s was $158 per person. Today, South Korea's GDP per capita is over $34,000 per person. And how were they able to accomplish this? You look at Singapore, it tells a similar story. A country being dissected from their motherland, the Philippines, and they themselves had to make some really important choices to improve the lives of their people. Among those choices was one, they made a pledge to retain the youngest and the brightest. And not only to retain them, but to attract outsiders who are young and bright to contribute to the development of that country. Today, Singapore boasts one of the most technologically advanced economies in the world. And sometimes when you juxtapose the Jamaican scenario with Singapore, it sounds cliche. However, if you recognize that both of us have the same potential, and Jamaican people also has the ability that has been displayed by a lot of these Asian people. But guess what happens? Young people in Jamaica feel disenfranchised from the productive process. Many of us believe that our voices are not being heard in the right places, and even if our voices are heard in the right places, we are not being given the ability to contribute our expertise and skill in a willful manner towards the holistic advancement of the particular industries in which we work. And as a result, many of us find it easier to get employment abroad, take a flight, go to the United States, we get 4 times the amount of income, we get more appreciation for the effort that we put in, and our abilities are better compensated and accepted. But today, I stand here to say to you that this People's National Party government has recognized that. And I am a symbol of how the People's National Party has entrusted their real understanding and their understanding of who we are, and entrusted responsibility on our young people. You have myself, you have young Wayne here, you have young Senator Gabriel Morris, and a host of other young people that the PNP has given voice in this political movement and has empowered us with the ability to say that yes, young people, there is a place for you. And these are things that we cannot overlook, right? Because we want to ensure that just as how Singapore were able to move their GDP per capita from less than $1,000 per person to over $100,000 per person, just as how other countries have been able to improve their GDP per capita, Jamaica too has the ability. Our current GDP per capita stands at about $7,000 per person per annum. In order for us to achieve our Vision 2030 goals, we need our GDP per capita to move from that 7,000 per person to at least 13,000 per person, which means that 7 plus 7, 14, right? So we need GDP per capita to practically double in less than 6 years. Now, my research has shown that this is going to be practically impossible, especially with the trajectory that Jamaica has been on over the last 10 years. However, we can pivot and we can evolve. In mathematics, we say that when you have a particular economy moving in a particular trajectory, there are no points of discontinuity, but there are turning points and change in trajectory. And that is what the People's National Party means when we say that we want to rescue Jamaica. We want to increase the income of the average citizen, and we want to improve how much each person earns per capita per annum, and that is fundamental. Now, how are we going to achieve this? We're going to achieve this through science, technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. We are already entrepreneurs, and we already have our innovative approach to every type of industry in this country. All that we need is support. First, we want to start with education, right? We want to start with innovation in education, because the world is changing. We are now moving into the 4th and the 5th industrial revolution at the same time. And Jamaica missed the technology boat in the 1950s when these countries, the Singapore, the China, the Japan, the Taiwan, the South Korea were jumping on the technology boat. Jamaica jumped on the banana boat. And that has restricted our ability to generate real true income for our people. And we've said it many times, Singapore and Jamaica export a container of chips. The value of Singapore's container of chips, $100 million US. It's the same container, right? The value of Singapore's container of chips, $100 million US. The value of Jamaica's container of chips, a measly $50,000 US. The difference here is that Singapore exported a container of microchips, while Jamaica exported a container of banana chips. We have to, as a country, evolve from the banana chips mentality, something that we economists refer to as the plantation economy. It's just a different figure of speech, it's just a different way of articulating the same point. But we must now begin to appreciate the ambition of our people. And what we're seeing is that the government boasts so much about low unemployment is that they really don't get the picture of the ambition that dwells within each Jamaican and what is it that we want to our communities, our towns and cities, and by far our country. So when they talk about minimum wage and they speak about increasing it from $15,000 per week to $16,000 per week. That's $100 US per week. That's $400 US per month. 12 4 is 48. Oh my God, if you're working minimum wage, it means that you're working about $5,000 US per year. And it sounds a bit trivial, doesn't it? Hard-working Jamaicans, well-thinking Jamaicans, Jamaicans with ambition to be their best selves are restricted to the idea of minimum wage. This PNP government has recognized that minimum wage cannot take us far, that exhausting the extensive margin and employing our people for twopence, what's their name? Twopence. Employing our people for twopence is a 1960s, 1860s, 1760s type of mentality. The world is now using the Internet of Things, using the 4th and the 5th Industrial Revolution to create what we call unicorns. Unicorns are companies that make over $1 billion US in no time. When you look at Jamaica's GDP, our GDP is about $18 billion US, we can run it off to 20, and it has been the government's ambition since they came into power in 2016 to achieve 5% growth. They dubbed it 5 in 4, and they wanted to achieve that 5% growth by 2020, right? It is now 2025, and we're still stuck at our usual 1% growth. It shows you gross mismanagement of the macroeconomy, right? And it's lack of understanding, because when they came with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, we recognized the flaw and said that ministry, if it is to be articulated properly, should be the Ministry of Wealth Creation and Economic Development. Because those two phrases are the phrases that are going to allow employment to take place and most fundamentally GDP growth to take place. So we're talking about technology. We need technology in education to help our students to learn. We need them now to move from that 18% who graduate with CXCs to at least 70% graduated with CXCs. We need proper AI systems to check and balance all the students coming from the communities who are going to school, to be registered at school, to make sure that they are in class learning and also support services. Because as an educator myself, I can tell you that there is a silent revolution taking place in how people are educated. The days of dictating to people and chalk and cheese and so on, it's a thing of the past. These students are learning far faster than we are, and they have far greater resources, and it's up to us not to belittle technology and keep Jamaica behind, but it's up to us to embrace technology learning and to give our young people the foundation that they need, and to support them using artificial intelligence, because many teachers believe that artificial intelligence is going to compete with the student and also compete with them. No. Artificial intelligence is a tool that is going to allow the students to learn more information per unit of time and allowing them to become more productive. Because productivity and the intensive margin is what our aim should be geared towards extending. Technology in finance, very important. We're losing the ability of cash to move quickly. Gone are the days you want to transact business and you send the money through the bank transfer and the person is in the line waiting from 9 p.m. You send the money from 8 a.m. in the morning and sometimes it goes through, sometimes it does not. We need financial solutions that are quick and right on spot. And the People's National Party recognize this because we need fintech solutions. We can't say, okay, somebody wants to do something in Montego Bay. We go to the bank 9 a.m. in the morning, we send the money is not going to them until 3 p.m. that afternoon. That is slowing up the locomotion of the lifeblood of the economy, which is money. So financial technology is going to be very important if this country wants transactions to move faster and they want more output per unit. We love the agricultural industry, and technology in agriculture is number one on our list as well. Our leaders company is going to prepare an agriculture fund, and this fund is going to be used to improve how technology is assisting the agricultural industry to grow. Jamaica agricultural industry depends on water, it depends on inputs, right? And it faces challenges, drought sometimes, flood sometimes. Prices are high in July, prices are high in December. Prices high in July because of drought, prices high in December because of flood rains that damage the crops. We need now these micro dams that Michael Manley spoke about. They are relevant in 19 countries, they are now relevant in 2025. With the infusion of smart technology that will track and monitor how water is distributed to these crops, that will allow us to grow more crops per unit of time, allow us to grow more crops per space, because technology has assisted many countries around the world to improve their agricultural output, and technology will allow Jamaica to improve its agricultural output. Fundamental. Technology in healthcare. One of my uncles died yesterday. He went to the Cornwall Regional Hospital, he was healthy on Sunday, all of us eat Sunday dinner, all a good time. Yesterday morning, him saying chest a tighten up, and he go Cornwall Regional Hospital, and by 8 p.m. him dead. This is very disheartening to me. I'm standing here in front of you with tears in the back of my eyes, because the healthcare system, and we cannot reiterate how this government is PRing their way through the healthcare system, while innocent Jamaicans are dying left, right, and center. Well-thinking people like ourselves are standing on the sidelines and are saying that, oh, and that is a problem I have with nationwide news too. Because when Cliff Hughes talk about Christopher Tufton, oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread, oh, is it this, is it that? And then when we go on this program to talk, oh, it's because you're unpopular, where you come on the station, it's like they approach them who are not doing anything with a positive mind, and us who mean the country so much, they try to infuse negative when they try to speak to us, and I don't like it. I don't like it. And that is a problem that we've had with a lot of these people who are not fair in how they go about discussing the business of the country. And those are the things that have held Jamaica back, and it will continue to hold us back if we don't hold these people accountable with their biased efforts. Comrades, technology is important to every single industry. And what we have done thus far is to map out all the industries and how technology can help them to grow. We have to develop a spatial plan that looks at all the industries in every parish. And as I said to you before, if we have a GDP of $20 billion, all it takes for it to increase by 5% is to grow it by $1 billion per year. The same billion of which we speak. And we have the plans. If we have 14 parishes, it means that we only need, say, less than 100 billion per parish in order for us to grow by that 5%. Westmoreland alone, when we improve and increase the ability for us to earn from nutraceutical products, from pharmaceutical products, and we create the industry, Westmoreland alone will give us the ability to grow by 5%, let alone the other parishes. Believe in the People's National Party plans, believe in our ability to articulate our plans and to infuse our plans, and believe in your own potential, because the People's National Party is here to provide resources that will catapult you and your family, not just to get jobs, not just to become part of the working poor, but for you to elevate from the lower class to the middle class, and from the middle class to the upper class. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
That was inspiring. Right, when I told him he was able to break down those intimidating terms. And so thank you for breaking it down so clearly. Real economic growth happens at the intensive margin when we use technology to improve how we work and what we produce, and at the extensive margin when we bring more Jamaicans, especially our youth, into the economy. That's the kind of inclusive, tech-driven future the People's National Party is committed to building. So a round of applause to Dr. So on the 5 Gs of the cultural economy, we have Dr. Deborah Hickling Gordon, Shadow Minister on Culture and Creative Industries, coming to us. Please make her feel welcome. And we ask for her presentation at this time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Party leader, colleagues, all. As Andre said, those who are comrade-minded, ladies and gentlemen. One of the things that I have found out going around the country supporting a number of the candidates who are running for the People's National Party, as I'm not running myself, but I have put myself forward as the representative for the cultural and creative industries. That's my non-geographical constituency. I found that there are a lot of people who don't know what the cultural and creative industries actually are. So I'm going to use an example to see if I can get everyone in this room, particularly those of us from our movement, to understand exactly how the two concepts come together.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, man, you still have a little bit of energy left. Because we should be energized after this. Yes. No, I couldn't come here without taking a good job. You know, I know that Philip said that he wanted to debate Darian, yes, on energy. And I am inviting Favor because she could not make it to the other debate. I am ready to debate. You know, as a politician, I couldn't come here without saying that, right? But I'm here to the important time. And I want to acknowledge our awesome secretariat, led by our DJs Dexroy Martin, and the regional chair Dennis Gordon, and the regional secretary Paul Burton, and their team for organizing today's event. And I want to acknowledge our communications team team that's been working very hard, and tonight anchored by Chelan. Give her a round of applause. And of course, BOJ TV, that is everywhere we are. We got Kern. Yes. And the Nufford Court, the Nufford Hotel, Port Hotel, yes. And what is it? Summit Hotel. Change the Summit, yes, the Summit Hotel. Yes. And your team, thank you very much for creating the space for us and having us here. And I want to acknowledge Wayne for guiding us through tonight. And for reminding us that a participatory democracy is one led by the people. And so, and where your voice must be at the center. And so today I want to thank you, the audience, for making sure that your voice was at the center and for choosing to put it there. Because if we didn't participate, we could not have had this forum. And of course, I want to thank our party leader, the next Prime Minister, for setting the framework for government and put good ethics at the center. For reminding us that we are championing change as a team with the Porsche initiative in housing, the ease in education, and a productive healthcare system. And you know, while we're going through the process, I want to thank Dr. Andre Horton for reminding us that we are the party that engages young people, that puts young people in positions of leadership. And that we are going to lead us through a process of intensive growth. We are learning things in that, Andre. You hear me? Intensive growth. With technology as a driver. But it's not just there, because I want to acknowledge Debbie and thank her, because she's reminding us that we are going to create value from what we feel and who we are, right? The cultural and creative industry, making communities come alive again and creating a vibe. May I look forward to it. Yes, August, don't say what about ghetto.
Yes, 1 August now.
1 August now. Yes. And you know, as she spoke about it, she brought the technology into it a little bit, right? Because communications have the 5G technology, and she'll bring the cultural 5G technology. And I want to acknowledge her for that. We're not going to forget the 5G. And then of course, we have to thank Philip, right? Power for the people. What we doing the power for the people in a protected environment, preparing for the challenges that we know by climate change. Because we know that we are ready. You know? And Audrey said, I think he said, we believe in you. And Debbie says, we are going to tell our story. And I want you to remember tonight when you leave here, the People's National Party believes in you. The People's National Party intends to help you tell your story. And not just tell your story, but create your story. One that is going to cause you to have prosperity. Yes, prosperity, but real prosperity. Because we are going to be able to create wealth and not jobs. And so, I want you to remember, as we leave here tonight, and we thank our presenters tonight, that your time has come. And we want to thank you, party leaders, for putting together an exemplary team and being the exemplary leader, a man of integrity and high moral standards. Impeccable. That gives us the confidence and the belief that will allow us to leave here with the knowledge that the next PNP government will ensure that people's time comes. Thank you.
No, I think thanks for what said. I'm asking everyone to stand as we close out for the recital.
So, I am not going to, in any way, try to give a fulsome presentation at this stage, because the important aspect of this forum is also to hear from you. And so at the end of my presentation, you're going to see a QR code appearing on the screen. Just take a photograph of that. It's going to take you to my website where you'll see the presentation among other presentations. Because we have not been here just opposing. We have been planning to return to government. Things are tough for the Jamaican people. Times are hard. Our cost of living has been a tremendous burden to our poor people. And you know, I'm a 6th term member of parliament going for my 7th term. And my most challenging term has been this term. People used to come, yes, they need help to going back to school. We assist them with roofs because those get damaged. But it's the first term that I'm experiencing so many of my constituents come to me, say, MP, I'm hungry. I want some food. And these guys, they don't understand why people are going to vote them out, you know. Because people are suffering, people are hungry, and this hollering of prosperity, pun intended, aggravates people. You know, it is in the era of energy that we have seen the tremendous impact of cost of living. And it's twofold, because yes, as consumers of electric energy at home, we have seen from 2016 when the price of electricity was about 23 cents per kilowatt hour, 2016. To today, it's 40 cents and climbing. And that affects everything else. So when you go to buy sugar, when you go to take a taxi, it affects all the goods and services that we produce. And it is also largely responsible for our lack of growth. So it's two things. You have the cost of living going up, driven largely by energy, and you have no growth taking place. So even those persons who are employed, their income is not improving because there is stagnation in our economy.
That's right.
And today we are presenting to you certain, I believe, clear strategy to address that. And I welcome this, even though I have preferred to have a debate with the Minister of Energy. So I'm using this opportunity to once again to call out Darren. Come and debate me in front of us through the audience, where you can ask questions and we can answer questions. We have a lot of work to do. And there are certain things operating in our favor. Firstly, we have the emerging JPSL license that, in many respects, has prevented us from doing some of the things that we want to do. But unlike the cable and wireless license, which still would have been running, because that license would have expired in 2038. And thank God we're the government that has a vision. And as I say that, I'm so happy to see Ivan Makalasobas, who was the first chairman of the e-learning company, and of course they were trained with Universal Service Fund, and I and the government were the proud parents of those two institutions that continue to serve the country. But an important date is emerging when the government of Jamaica, by the 7th of July, must indicate to JPSO what it is going to be doing with the license. And all I'm hearing is that consultations are taking place. This consultation, if I were minister, would have taken place in 2023. And we'll be in a position today to say to JPSRO, here is the plan. Here are the negotiating terms we're proposing. And just as we did with Cape and Wireless, to sit down and to make sure that the Jamaican people benefit in the long run. And what are some of the things we want to do? Firstly, when you go to pay your electricity bills today, 20% of that bill is not from electricity that you use. It is from electricity theft. And I really believe that in this day and age, electricity must be a right. And it must be afforded to those persons who can't afford it. And there are solutions to that. We have seen, and by the way, there are about 200 to 300,000 households that cannot afford electricity. I hope I'm saying that right, Paul. We have seen, because we did it, when we established the first solar farm in Jamaica, in Wigton, in Content, in Clarendon, where you can generate electricity at a fraction of the cost. And today, with the improvement in the technology for solar panels, and the price has come down, with the improvement in the technology for inverters that convert the solar into direct energy, and very importantly, with the improvement in the technology for storage. That was a problem that we faced with renewables. That yes, the sun shines only in the daytime, the wind sometimes don't blow, but we could not capture and store that energy for when the sun is up, down, or the wind is not blowing. We have seen in the last 5 years, the government hasn't seen it yet, but we have seen the dramatic improvement in the technology for storage, batteries, so that today, if you have enough batteries, you can be supplying electricity for 24/7. And we are going to be utilizing solar to effect rapid changes in those communities that cannot afford electricity. And we're going to be establishing mini grids using solar, and we're going to be enabling our people who can't afford it, who have to be running and hiding when they see police coming, to pull down the wires. That will be a thing of the past. But very importantly, we want to empower you, every single Jamaican. And I'm going to tell you why it won't put JPS out of business. But we want to empower you to generate your own electricity. And that is what we call power for the people. Power for the people. And we are coming up with a creative scheme to assist you in funding. Not going to be entirely free. But the good thing about what we are planning to do is that we are going to enable you as well, apart from providing your own electricity, to generate sufficient so that you can sell additional electricity to the grid, so you're becoming a producer rather than just a consumer of electricity. We say power for the people. Power for the people. And then there are some other things that we have to do in the reforms that will have to occur. Right now, JPSO has this right of first refusal. So whenever you need additional capacity, they have a preferred right. We have to abolish that. You know I believe in competition. So it's going to be subject to full competition, and whoever comes with the best technology and the cheapest price will be those generation that will be procured and will be supplied to the grid. That's one area. Secondly, we believe that our special economic zones have not done as well as was intended because of the high cost of electricity. We believe that as we move for growth, we have to empower these zones to generate their own electricity. And so there's going to be a special carve-out. Just as how each of you will be able to do your own generation, we're going to empower those people who operate in a special economic zone to generate their own electricity as well. There are so many other aspects of energy that we really ought to talk about. But I'm mindful of the time. So let me now shift a little to two important areas. The environment, and the environment is on the third cousin. It's going to be front and center to all that we do as a government. And of course, climate change. The environment, we have a tremendous responsibility. Recognizing that whatever we do to increase our capacity to grow could have a negative impact on the environment. But we are all about sustainable growth. And I know whenever a cabinet submission is placed before markgolding, he's going to be asking 2 or 3 questions. What impact will this have on our environment? And how are we going to mitigate that impact? He's also going to be asking for what impact will this have on our disabled community?
Protecting heritage, nurturing talent at every level, grounding, reviving the cultural soul and economy of communities and towns island-wide, growth, structuring the cultural economy to unlock wealth through creative enterprises backed by a preliminary $1 billion development fund. Good governance, bringing structure, fairness, participation, coordination, clarity, inclusion, and in particular transparency to cultural leadership. Global reach, expanding our influence through strategy, investment, infrastructure, technology, and trade. This is Jamaica's time. This is Jamaica's plan. This is Project G.
Responsibility for keeping the localities, municipality areas clean. We also want to see that our workers in the solid waste industry are put on a proper footing, that their employment terms and conditions are in keeping with their rights as workers, and so that they are no longer vulnerable to being treated in particular ways based on maybe political affiliation or other concerns. We get the reports, we hear the things that are going on, so we want to stand up and make sure that our workers in the solid waste industry are well looked after. But we also want to make sure that we have a system of delivering the services in communities that are being delivered by those who are closest to the communities in terms of governance. That's why local government is so important. And things like solid waste lend themselves to being better managed by persons who are close to the people and who the people can hold accountable much more readily for their performance. So that is some of the thinking that we have. And you know, we have with us Joan Gordon, Comrade Joan, who is a former head of the National Solid Waste Authority, and who, you know, ran it at a level which we haven't seen since. And you know, so I just want to pick her up and say, you know, yeah, you know, with the People's National Party, we have the talent to manage, and we have the acumen to manage these things well, and we intend to do so when we come back into the
Thank you so much, Presido. We'll take the final 3 questions and we'll wrap. Please identify yourself.
Thank you. My name is Ralston Nunes. I'm from Vice Chairman of West Rural St. Andrew. First of all, let me thank you for what I think was four absolutely wonderful presentation. It was worth being here. It's not really a question, maybe it's a sensitization, but I think that one of the most underlooked, underappreciated sector of the society. And if you try to quantify in monetary terms what they contribute to the country, maybe it will bog your mind. But the charity organizations, the Kiwanis, the Rotary, Lions, etc., they face tremendous problem in terms of not only getting the charity status, but maintaining it. And other times we have donation that is sitting on the wall and has to be returned or is no longer good. So we just want to sensitize you that you need to look at that sector and see what we can do to make it a little bit easier, because indeed these are some very valuable institutions. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Patrick Smellens, and from West Rural St. Andrew. And I'm happy to know that June Gardner-Webley is so known and is actually considered a hard worker, and as some people shout out, the best. So she's came to the constituency and been working hard and convinced me to work with her. But my concern, and I want to direct it to the leader, the party leader, what are your plans in fixing our roads? Because we have seen the government over the years patching and fixing the road, and they will do it, fix this road in the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 months, and there it goes again. So it must be a plan. I heard you recently saying that there will be a maintenance plan. And from I get back from the States, I've been saying the same thing. And I was so happy to hear you say that your party will be coming with a maintenance plan. And I think that is crucial for our roads today, because we can't continue with these type of roads that we're having. I think West Rural have seen some of the worst road condition right now. The people have to resign. I wouldn't never resign as an MP or a councillor with the condition of these roads, especially the school vicinities. It's disgraceful. And so I would love to know if this party has a plan, you know, to better manage and fixing these roads. One other thing quickly is our youth coming out of school, joining the corner with a slip and a little cup. We need to see some changes starting from these young men coming out of high school. Almost no hope. I wonder when some of our ladies, we see them going to university, seeking higher education, who are they going to be married to? Because these are just tough. Coming up, everybody just wants to slip and want to join the corner. So I'm saying we must have a plan for these young people coming out of our schools, some training centers, and every MP should have a plan to begin to look at how we can help our young men especially.
Again, I just want to mirror what everybody has said. We really have to congratulate the Prime Minister in waiting and his team. They've done a fantastic job. Tell them the ordinary Jamaicans. Legally, I think of the past with this encouraging for me, and I want to just ask Prime Minister, the lack of green spaces create like parks, and a lack of that is why we're having what this gentleman just talked about, where the crushing of hand middle is the typical social event for youngsters. we have lost some community centers to developments. So we have a lot of concrete going up.
About the rich people them.
I'm going to ask that you consider the specialists in the area of housing or construction, that they mandate that for every approval of gated communities, there has to be a designation for green space for those communities, youngsters, for families to interact in a normal way. Like when we were younger, there were always a park or a community center. And without that, our children are going to become adults before they are children. I'm asking that you put that in, if it can be incorporated legally in the town planning laws, that every gated development cannot be approved if there is not that requisite green space for the families of those areas to interact in normalcy. Also another concern I have, which I'm hoping will be addressed, that travesty that had happened to those unfortunate people whose houses were almost at completion in Burnham, and through strange means they were demolished, even though there was manifestation of them having ownership certificates from our previous Prime Minister, So how can we legally prevent such a travesty from ever happening again? Because up to now, I'm sure a lot of Jamaicans are still not aware of whatever happened to those unfortunate people in terms of legal redress. And I'm hoping that it is not true. I've been hearing rumors of the ownership of all these people's homes being reverted to somebody who I won't mention, but I hope it's not so. Because if it was legally theirs, what framework are you going to put in place to make sure that these people's rights are protected in terms of their I mean, it was heart-rending when I think of that lady admitting that she used to push wheelbarrows of cement at people's side to build hers and to have it demolished. It's scary. So I'm just asking that you address it.
Thank you very much. We can go ahead and begin for answers.
Okay, well, I sympathize with the concern that you've expressed about how the charitable sector, including service clubs and others, finding it so hard to remain compliant with the regulatory environment that has been imposed on them. Now, to some extent, this is not driven by Jamaican policymakers, but by the Western countries that have this organization called the Financial Action Task Force that exerts pressure on countries like ours to reduce the risk of money laundering and terrorism financing, and have these lists, you've heard of them, blacklisting, grey-listing, where countries that are not seen to have the necessary procedures and laws in place to reduce those risks are subject to pressure, where even their banking system can be cut off from the international financial community. So this is why some of these very onerous laws have been passed. Now, in my opinion, there needs to be a differentiation between smaller charities and the rules that should apply to them and the requirements imposed on them, as opposed to much larger organizations that have greater resources to devote to that type of compliance. In the same way that in our company law, you know, smaller companies can adopt a system of accounting and production of financial statements which are less burdensome on them than larger companies have. You know, there should be a similar differentiation so that our smaller charities, of which there are many, and you know, and I am associated with one to do with persons with disabilities, and the Sir John Golding Rehab Center, you know, where I've, you know, been struggling like others to ensure compliance, and it's an ongoing battle. But, you know, I believe that there is room for advocating with the international bodies as to why there should be a differentiation between, just in the same way when it comes to know your customer requirements and financial inclusion, that smaller customers should be given less, there should be a more easily surmounted procedure for onboarding somebody into the banking system than say a bigger customer, and the rules applicable to those smaller customers should be much less onerous on them. So there is a need for that kind of nuanced approach so that we don't have, as it were, the baby being thrown out with the bathwater, as they say. The second thing was the use and road maintenance. Well, Jamaica spent decades focusing on building highways, and it has been important from a developmental point of view. P.J. Patterson was, you know, and Kingsley Thomas and Wayne Reed and them who worked on the Highway 2000 project, and Sister P, who, you know, was really in charge when with Dr. Davis, Omar Davis as the transport minister dealing with the North-South link and so on. And, you know, these are important projects, and a lot of capital was devoted to that. But what we have seen is a complete neglect of the major part of the road network, which is the roads that our people drive on every day. Scheme roads, and the roads in community roads, and the roads that go, you know, connect communities to these major highways. And that is why the government has had to be scurrying now with Reach and Spark, because they know that they're fully culpable for having neglected the road network, and the Jamaican motorists and users of the roads have been badly beaten and battered by the road conditions as a result of that neglect. And I'm sure that they will be held accountable when they come to the polls now for having allowed this situation to reach where it has reached, because their reach is not really dealing with the problem in a comprehensive way, because the problem is so large. What we need is a consistent approach towards the maintenance of roads, and prioritizing maintenance and the techniques that are used to repair roads and build new roads, so that we don't have shortcuts and we don't have corruption in the way that materials are being used and how the monitoring is done. So there's a greater level of accountability to ensure that people, the consumers and taxpayers of the country, get value for money for the expenditures on roads. And we intend to ensure that that is the case by putting the necessary checks and balances in place to ensure that that is so, and ensuring that there is an adequate provision consistently applied to road maintenance so that the road network can be upgraded over time. It will not happen overnight, because Jamaica has some of the, I think, one of the densest levels of, well, in terms of miles of roads per square mile of territory, some of the densest in the world. We have a lot of roads, so it's going to take some time to deal with it, but it needs to be a policy priority. And I think that road maintenance and making sure the roads on which people drive on a daily basis are in a proper condition, a decent condition, is now the priority over major highway projects. That's my own view. And the issue about, well, youth and the need for providing avenues for the youth who are on the corner digging out them hand with the cup of, you know, special, you know. Yes, that is why Unite for Change was designed. That's what we're talking about. You know, a holistic approach to dealing with these issues. And as Debbie is saying, the cultural and creative industries and sports are avenues by which our youth can be channeled into productive activities that can generate good livings for themselves through lawful activities, as opposed to being attracted into gang violence and those things. So we are very much in favor of community activity, using, you know, the community leadership and the SDC, revamping and revitalizing the SDC to lead the charge. We need an army of social workers through our Ministry of Social Transformation to support this effort. And so it's we definitely see this as a differentiating factor between ourselves and the Jamaica Labour Party, which have really abandoned the youth of this country in terms of dealing with the issue of which youth vote. Yeah, well, the question about planning approvals and gated communities and ensuring green spaces is vital. You know, in an increasingly high-paced world where so much of our time is spent looking at a screen and so on, we need to have spaces where people can retreat to nature and be outdoors and have the benefit of tranquility to hold a meds and to get their exercise and to socialize as opposed to doing everything digitally and through the internet. So I'm fully on board with that, the imperative of ensuring that in our planning decisions, we take that very much into account.
Thank you. Please give our panelists a round of applause for those answers. So that concludes the people session. So, ladies and gentlemen, comrades, comrade-minded, civil groups, tonight was more than a forum, it was a statement that the People's National Party is listening, that we are learning and that we're leading with purpose. What's on the ballot is not just politics, it's the future of Jamaica. And that demands leadership that is bold, inclusive, and grounded in the people. To everyone that asked a question, share a thought, or simply tune in, thank you. And I now invite the President of the People's National Party's Women's Movement, Patricia Duncan Sutherland, and the parliamentary candidate, I want to say. So, 1, 2, 3.
The strength and vigor of my body, in the service of my fellow citizens, I promise to stand up for justice, brotherhood, and peace, to work diligently and creatively, to think generously and honestly, so that Jamaica may honor God, increase in beauty, fellowship, and prosperity, and play our part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good evening.
Big Belly Sketch is a rhyme of TV. People, God bless you, man, support it. Big Belly Sketch is the workers' champion. Say that you are good youth and God bless you. So support him. Hey, Sky Jones!
My name is Duembo from the World Immortals Toll over. I don't know. Rhyme Up TV, man. Tell you about that TV station. Don't touch on the dial, you understand? World's Toll Love, Rhyme Up TV. Horse, angry.
I'm coming to the world Google. Not about Rhyme Up TV. It's a Rhyme Up, one of the real one them. That's why I need stand up here and I do this. That's Rhyme Up. I'm real. I'm salute him. You hear that? Rhyme Up, pick up yourself, you know. Rhyme Up!
You're from Manhattan, the Rebel Girl Daniels here representing Rhyme Up. I love you.
Well, I don't know how I kill Marvelous to represent for DJ Rhyme Up. Rhyme Up.
Best them when there ain't no stress, then you don't know it. Sean Paul alongside the Rhyme Up. Tell some boy them time up. You don't know it go. Rhyme Up. Play music. Dirty.
Rhyme Up. I want global Rhyme Up. Like a real talking. I am telling you.
Don't talk on this Rhyme Up.